Morning and a very warm welcome to this week's Ask Dr. M. Very interesting question this week, and I think it's one a lot of people will relate to because the question actually is I think I have imposter syndrome, but I don't know what to do about it. And it is very popular at the moment because it's a term that tends to be flung around social media a lot. That's imposter syndrome. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's essentially when you're doing something like your job, it might be in sport, it might be being a new parent, you name it, it could be anything that you do. But this usually specifically in work roles, it happens most often. But as I say, it can be in anything and it can affect most of us at some point in our lives. But it's generally when you feel a fraud at what you're doing, and it's a constant fear of feeling that you're going to be exposed as a fraud in what you do. And generally, that comes down to not feeling good enough or confident enough in what you do. Hence, you get those feelings. So it is something a lot of people do relate to. And as I said, at some point, people do relate to that. You've probably been there yourself when, despite all the external evidence of your accomplishments, that you are good at what you do. As I said, that could be in work, in sport, at being a parent. You could be extremely good at this. All the evidence is there, but you don't really believe it inside. Hence, there's a perpetual fear that you're always going to be exposed as this fraud and never feel quite good enough at what you do. And there are lots of reasons why that might actually be. But as I said, it's a very common feeling people have. And now it tends to be labelled imposter syndrome. Hence, you feel like an imposter in whatever you're doing. I don't know if you've ever seen the Netflix program or comedy. It's called Working Mums, and that's a very good example of some mums that are new to being a mum, being in that circle. They never feel quite good enough compared to some other people, and that can be a lot of a problem. And at work as well, when you can put yourself up to people that may have been doing a job for a long time, very experienced at something, and you just don't feel quite good enough. You feel like the imposter. However, it's not actually true because you do have those accomplishments there. It is evidence. So that's essentially what we're talking about. So what we really want to focus on is how we can manage that and what we can do so we don't constantly make those brush offs. If someone says, for example, wow, you've done really well in business, that's great. And you just say, well, I was quite lucky. Anybody would do that sort of thing. Oh, it was nothing. So you get the picture of what I'm actually talking about. Imposter syndrome can be very natural to have. I've seen all kinds of people from MPs, celebrities, doctors, very high achieving CEOs, and the evidence is there that they're fantastic at what they do, but they may have had just bouts in their life, just something that's happened to really knock their confidence, leading them to feel like an imposter in whatever they do, to feel this anxiety that they're just not good enough. And that is just momentary and that can be sorted out. However, what we're talking about, what's really a problem, is when this is consistent, when this is all the time, when you just never feel quite good enough at what you do, when you constantly feel like you're going to be exposed or something is wrong, because that comes down to a deep self-belief inside that you're not quite good enough and you have a constant lack of self-worth, or you have inhibitions or an issue with your confidence that really needs addressing. So to distinguish the difference between if this is just a lapse of confidence in a moment, or perhaps you've started a new job or you have become a new parent, then it's natural to feel that way. And in a sense, that's actually a really good thing because it just shows that you're conscientious about what you do, and the fact you're aware of it is a fantastic thing. But if you're having these feelings constantly all the time, you need to start to ask yourself, how is it a problem? And what you'll probably find is that you actually get very stressed easy at work, anxious, for example, about doing presentations, that it's not necessarily going to be good enough, that you're focusing on all the what ifs. And one of the real main problems with imposter syndrome, when it is very severe, is that it stops you moving forward and stops you getting out of your comfort zone, because you've got this fear that you're not actually good enough to do that. So in this case, it's time to stop it, break out of your comfort zone and do something about it, because you can. And there's basically three simple ways of actually how you can start doing this. The first one is to change your focus, and it will start making a big difference. Paying attention to what language that you're using. What's your internal dialogue? What story are you telling yourself? Or do you go into work and constantly think, oh, I'm not good enough, that person's better than me? Do you look around on the internet? This is a common thing I talk about in the book, which is under New Age Fear. Because our lives are so exposed these days and we're so subject to scrutiny, everything's on social media. You go on a platform like LinkedIn, everybody looks like they do everything, everybody looks absolutely phenomenal at what they do. These videos, for example, what I'm doing, I'm perfectly aware these aren't absolutely fantastic, and it could be easy for me to think, oh, I'm not good enough. However, I know my content is, and I know what I do is good enough, and I know I have plenty of achievements to acknowledge that. So it's about believing it. And for yourself, what are you telling yourself when you see other people achieving things? You need to think, I am as good as that. I do know my stuff. I can do this, or I'm building up to this. I can do an extra course in this to be this good. I can look at these people as role models, but the key indicator is I am good enough and I can do this. And it's about the language that you tell yourself. You must be proactive with your language in terms of telling yourself that you can do things and you are good enough. It will start making a difference. Even if you don't believe it straight away, the more you tell it yourself, you will start to believe it. And there are other ways to help you focus and acknowledge every day that what you are, how good you are, and what your achievements are. So in practical terms, you can actually start doing this by making a list, so you can see it externally, write it down objectively, what your achievements are, why you're good and why you're capable at what you do, and stick it on your fridge so it's there, back flat bang in front of you, so you can see what you do, and it will keep filtering in. And also start to look objectively at yourself and your accomplishments. So imagine if you were a boss or you were just somebody else, and really go into somebody else's body, somebody external, somebody objective. Go into their body, go into their mindset, go into their persona of who they are, what they do, and imagine someone like yourself with your accomplishments is presented in front of you. Think, what would you think of them? So just start to take an objective look at things and think how you would feel about somebody else who has all your accomplishments. What would you say to somebody else who has that much success but outwardly doubts themselves all the time, or is saying to you, yeah, I've done all that and I've achieved all these great things, but I'm just never good enough, or oh, anybody could do that, I'm nothing special? What would you say to them, and what would you think about them if they presented all what you do and what you do have to you? So start to look at it objectively, see it from being a different person, put somebody else's hat on as if they were looking, as if you're looking at you, but from a completely different perspective, because that can just help to get some objectivity. And maybe you think, oh, actually, if that was somebody else with all those achievements, I'd actually think they were pretty good. I might be actually pretty envious of them. And it will then just help you to start thinking, actually, maybe I do have some great qualities, and maybe I can start appreciating that, and maybe I can actually start being grateful for all the accomplishments that I do have. And you'll start attracting more good feelings about that. So it's important to really change your focus there in terms of language, looking objectively, making an objective list of all the things that you're good at and all your accomplishments. And it does really start to compound it then and make a difference if you then start to feel good about that and accept it and then just let it radiate. So that's one of the ways you can change your focus. And the more you practice it, the more it will become a habit to actually feel good and acknowledge those achievements, because it can also be a habit to actually keep doubting yourself and keep thinking you're not good enough. And then that just goes deeper and deeper, and you experience those feelings constantly. So change it round, change your focus round, ask for what you want. Remember, as I've talked about on a lot of the previous videos, and I talk a lot about in the book, which does have all the answers to all these questions that you keep asking, we do live in a yes universe. So whatever you're thinking, whatever you're deep down believing, the universe says yes to. So you really don't want to be thinking you're not worth it, or you're not good enough, or you can't achieve something, or you can't do something. You need to go, yes, you can. Here's my accomplishments. Here's the evidence. Here's what I can do. Here's how I can improve. Here's what I can look at to go forward. And here's how I can step out of my comfort zone. We live in that yes universe. So that's the first point on all the things that you can do to actually just change your focus. Now, the second point that makes a huge difference, and anybody that knows me will know that I always say this because it's the most important thing anybody can ever do, and that's dig deep to tackle the root. It came from somewhere as to why you never feel quite good enough, that self-doubt or that lack of confidence. There's a root cause to that. And once you can tackle that, even rip it out, release it, then any experiences that you've had that instigated that literally just become wisdom and allow you to move on once you've removed that negative emotion. So say in terms of something like not feeling quite good enough in something, when I was younger, I was growing up with type 1 diabetes, and I was actually moved down from the top science set to the bottom science set on the grounds that I was looking tired and I couldn't keep up with all the top set students, even though I'd passed all the exams to stay up there and everything else. The science teacher moved me down to the bottom set. However, at the time, as a child, I didn't know his reason or rationale for that, and I just got shoved down into the bottom set. So that could have, at the time, really knocked my confidence in science and prevented me from going down a certain route there, because it did actually put me off doing the sciences, and I put my focus somewhere else. And by the time I sorted it out and worked to get myself back up to the top set, so I did have the confidence to do that. However, every single little experience we have, there's a root cause for everything, and if you don't tackle things, or you're unaware of something as to why it may cause a certain problem or a certain limiting belief within you, it can escalate, and it can materialize into things like imposter syndrome. So it's really important to dig deep and get to those root causes. And certainly in the book, that really helps you to dig deep and go through those root causes through a very introspective series of questions that really helps you get to the root beneath the root. And that's why the work I do generally in practice as well is so important, because it can help people to uncover things that are really still very unconscious to them, and they don't realize why they have certain habits and certain things that they do today, or why they're not happy today because of certain triggers very long ago in their past. So it's really essential to dig deep and sort them out. Now, a third way to deal with imposter syndrome is actually to start building up resilience. Step out of your comfort zone. Do things that will make you step out of your comfort zone and build your confidence. Really build you up to being the best you, to be the euphoric you, so you can actually go out there and achieve anything. And building resilience is about doing the things that will make you realize that, and that you can go out there and do anything. Now, there are so many ways to build up resilience, but a very good way, and when we're talking about dealing with imposter syndrome, is actually go and ask someone for some feedback about you. Ask them what they think of you, ask them what they think of your achievements, and just generally get some feedback on what people's impressions of you are. And yeah, it takes some balls, some guts to go out there and ask people what they think of you, but you'll be surprised what people will tell you. Generally, you'll hear how good you are, and your successes will be validated, and that might be what you need to hear, because your case of imposter syndrome might just be that you need external convincers that you're actually good enough. You might just need to be told that you're good enough, rather than it simply just coming out from inside, from you knowing that. Or it could be a bit of both. But either way, to get some external feedback can be really useful. And even sometimes you might learn things about yourself that you can improve on, that you can do a lot better, or that you might need to hear and might not have realised. And that's a good thing. Always acknowledge feedback is a great thing, no matter what it is or what people say. There's always something you can actually learn. So that's a really good way of resilience building. Also, if you don't feel quite good enough, maybe you need to ask yourself the question, how will I know when I'm good enough? What has to happen for me to feel good enough? Now, that's an interesting question, and you can go on and, you might need to really think about that, but it's very important, because what do you need to do? What does need to happen for you to feel good enough? And perhaps you'll discover maybe you have got a slight knowledge gap in something, so going and doing a certain course, a degree, practicing something a little bit more, as I said, being need to be told something by somebody else that you're good enough. All those things amount to what might need to happen for you to feel good enough. But either way, dig deep with that question, and you'll discover all sorts of things you can do to really push forward, build your confidence, build up that resilience, to make sure you start feeling good enough, because we all are, and we can go out there and achieve anything. We can feel euphoric, you can be the best you, and it's about finding that, embracing that, and really feeling it. And help and support's always out there for you when you want it. So put it out there and let the support in, let everything you need come in, because you need to feel like you actually deserve it. So there's basically the 3 reasons you can deal with imposter syndrome. So first of all, change your focus through all the things that we said there. Second of all, dig deep, one of my favourite ones. And thirdly, always build resilience, step out of your comfort zone, push your confidence. And I will say, as I say with all the questions, everything you need to help you, everything you need to get the most phenomenal, best life possible that you can have, all the answers are guaranteed in that book, Out of Your Comfort Zone, because it takes you step by step to help you get through and to help you get there and achieve what you want to achieve. And if you do want to do that, and you do believe you can do that, you always will. So that's it from me today. I've said plenty enough, so go ahead, have a super weekend. And also, if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, Facebook as well, I'm always getting to grips with them all, but I put out lots of posters, and at the moment I'm on a resilience builder theme with the posters. So for imposter syndrome, for building up your resilience and building up your confidence, really appreciating more your self-worth, some of them will be good for you, and there's gold in a lot of things that I'll say and put out there, if you take it on board and you follow things. But you can always get what you want, lose your inhibitions, lose imposter syndrome. Please Don't let it be a limitation to you, because you can lose it. You can go forward and get all the things you want. Remember, removing all those limitations and negative emotions attached to any experience just becomes wisdom, and that wisdom helps push you forward, get those things that you want. Right now, that really is it from me, because I have to get off. Have a super weekend and keep your questions coming, and I will see you next week.